Racist teacher bullies black teen girl in school. What happened next will shock you. How far will someone go to protect their bias? How blind can prejudice make a person until they fail to see the harm they inflict, or the true identity of the one they target? Talia Harper sat in the farthest row of Miss Grayson's classroom, hoping the distance would shield her. But Miss Grayson had a way of finding her. Each glance like a spotlight, each pointed remark cutting deeper than the last. The classroom felt suffocating, not just because of the stifling heat, but because of the tension that had been brewing between them for over a year. Today's topic was civil rights, one that consistently brought out the worst in Miss Grayson. Talia felt the teacher's gaze linger on her as if daring her to speak, to contradict the slanted version of history being presented. Some people, Miss Grayson said, her voice dripping with disdain, believe they're owed something simply because of past injustices. But in this classroom, merit is what counts. Talia felt her stomach churn. She knew this wasn't a random statement. It was bait, carefully crafted to provoke her. The comments had started in her sophomore year. Small jabs wrapped in professionalism but carrying an unmistakable sting. "You'd excel more if you stopped playing into stereotypes," Miss Grayson once told her, marking her essay with a red C for reasons that didn't add up. "I expect more from you, Talia, despite the challenges someone like you faces." Someone like me, Talia thought bitterly. The words had echoed in her mind. She wasn't the only black student at Southridge High, but she was the one Miss Grayson had zeroed in on repeatedly. Her father, Captain Malcolm Harper of the city's police department, had always told her to be vigilant against prejudice, but Talia had chosen not to bring him into it. She wanted to handle it herself. By the time the bell rang, signaling the end of class, Talia's hands were trembling. Her best friend Amaya noticed immediately. "Hey, what's wrong?" she whispered. "I'm fine," Talia lied. But the words from Miss Grayson clung to her like a shadow. A teacher, a supposed beacon of knowledge, was using her authority to belittle, not educate. And worse, she did it in front of a captive audience. At lunch, Talia relived the moments in her mind. Why did Miss Grayson seem to have it out for her? What fueled the venom in her words? Amaya pressed her again to tell someone. "This isn't just about you," she said firmly. "It's about what's right." But Talia hesitated. What would happen if her dad stepped in? Would people think she was exploiting his rank? Would it backfire? The tension came to a head the next day. During a heated discussion on systemic racism, Miss Grayson zeroed in on Talia. "Well," she said with an icy smirk, "some people find it easier to point fingers at the system than to take responsibility for their own shortcomings." Talia's heart sank. Her classmates turned toward her, some exchanging uncomfortable glances, others stifling nervous chuckles. "Excuse me?" Talia whispered, her voice tight with anger and disbelief. "You heard me," Miss Grayson replied, her tone saccharine and cutting. "Perhaps you'd have better grades if you spent less time playing the victim and more time focusing on improvement." The room fell silent, the weight of her words pressing down on everyone. Talia felt humiliated, trapped under the scrutiny of her peers. That evening, Talia broke down and told her father everything. She shared how Miss Grayson had been targeting her, how her cruel remarks had escalated into public humiliation. Captain Harper listened silently, his jaw tightening with each word. "Why didn't you come to me sooner?" he asked softly. "I didn't want to make it worse," Talia admitted. "I didn't want people thinking I was using you." Captain Harper's eyes darkened. "This isn't about me. It's about someone abusing their authority, and that stops now." The next morning, Captain Harper took immediate action. He met with the school principal, Miss Bennett, and the district superintendent. As Captain Harper entered the school, his presence turned heads. He wasn't just a concerned parent. He was a man with authority who demanded accountability. In the meeting, Miss Bennett attempted to downplay the accusations. "Miss Grayson has been with us for years and has always maintained a good reputation." "Reputation doesn't excuse behavior," Captain Harper said firmly. "If you've never had complaints, it's because you weren't listening." Miss Grayson was called into the meeting, her confidence faltering when she recognized Captain Harper. "I wasn't aware Talia was your daughter," she said, her voice stiff. "That's the problem," Captain Harper replied coldly. "You shouldn't treat any student differently, regardless of their background or who their family is." As the investigation unfolded, other students came forward, sharing their own experiences of Miss Grayson's bias and inappropriate behavior. The school district could no longer ignore the mounting evidence. Miss Grayson was suspended pending an official review. The community quickly rallied around Talia's story. Local news outlets covered the issue, shedding light on the broader problem of prejudice in schools. The public response was overwhelming, with parents and community leaders demanding systemic change. Ultimately, Miss Grayson's teaching license was revoked. The incident became a turning point for the school, prompting a reevaluation of its culture and the implementation of new anti-bias training for staff. For Talia, the experience was transformative. She had faced humiliation, but she had also found her voice, and with it, the courage to stand up for herself and others. In the end, she realized that speaking out was the first step toward change. The question that lingered: how many more students were still enduring silence? And how long would it take for every classroom to be a safe space for all?